Hi, and welcome back to this week's Parsha Shir on Sefer Maayan Beit Hashoeva. In the fifth aliyah of this amazing Parsha, Parshat Reeh, we learn about the mitzvah of Meiser Sheni. After a person takes from their crops the first two types of donations, the Truma, which goes to the Kohen, and Meiser Rishon, which goes to the Levi, they have an obligation on at least 3 of the years of the Shemitah cycle, year 1, year 2, and year 4, to separate out an additional Meiser called Meiser Sheni, which is eaten in Yerushalayim. The off years, year 3 and year 6, not Meiser Sheni is given, but Meiser Ani, which is given to people who are impoverished. So when the Torah introduces us to this mitzvah of Meiser Sheni, the second tithe that's given, the pasuk says, Aser te'aser, es kol tuasaracha hayotzi hasadeh shana shana. Aser te'aser, tithe you shall surely tithe all the crops that you planted that come out year to year. Now, the language of aser to aser, sometimes words are repeated in the Torah just for emphasis. Aser to aser, not only should you tithe, but tithe, you shall surely tithe. But even when it's only stated for emphasis, something is usually derived by Chazal in terms of the double repetition, in terms of the repetition of the word, the doubling of the word, the emphasis of the word. Why in this particular context is the word emphasized so much? So the Gemara in Masechah Shabbos quotes a famous Mamar Chazal about this pasuk, aser to aser, where Chazal make a play on the second word, te'aser, switching out the sin for a shin. Masechah Shabbos, aser, bishvil shetit asher. Not aser to aser, tithe you shall tithe, from the word eser, a tenth, but rather aser, tithe, take off that tenth, that meiser sheni. Te'aser should be read not te'aser, that you shall take off 10% or tithe, but te'asher, tit asher, that you will become wealthy. Not eser, but ashir, wealth. V'yesh laha'ir, shebederach klal lo matzinu shelashon osher, mora al inyan tov. V'kvar haya hachacham mikol adam b'sefer mishlei, v'koheles meganes ha'osher l'chol anafa. So he says, Ve'emes Chazal, we understand that the more tzedakah you give, the more you're enriched, aser kedei shetit asher, that the more you're careful about tithing, about taking off 10% of Meiser Sheni, Meiser Ani, Meiser Rishon, all of these Meisros, then you will be rewarded with osher, with wealth. That's the famous reading of this pasuk, and a beautiful idea which we could speak about more at greater length another time, which is the concept of giving and receiving, the concept that everything in the world belongs to Hashem, that even when we're tithing, it's in order for us to be able to recognize that it's not really ours to begin with, that everything we have is a gift from Hashem, etc. But the Sefer Maayan Beit Hashoeva of Schwab notes a very peculiar aspect of this drasha, which is normally osher, wealth, is not considered a positive thing in our literature, in our Tanakh, in our philosophy of looking at the world. Wealth, which is something very physical and very mundane, is normally frowned upon, and you find no better place which speaks negatively about the accumulation of wealth than, of course, in Koheles and Mishlei, where Shlomo HaMelech really speaks out against this, which is kind of ironic, or perhaps not ironic, perhaps very appropriate, knowing the wealth that Shlomo HaMelech himself accumulated. And yet, you see over here, Aser, Kedei Shetit Asher, the way Chazal are reading this pasuk, Osher is a very positive thing. Torah is telling us homiletically that you should try to tithe properly in order to become wealthy, in order to gain osher, in order to become an ashir, shetit asher. So why is it spoken of here in such a positive vein when normally in our literature it's not seen as a positive endeavor? So he answers in a very beautiful way. Maseches Nedarim, it says in Maseches Nedarim, Am Rabbi Yochanan, Eina Kadosh Baruch Hu, Mashre Shchinaso Ela Al Gibor, Ve'ashir, Ve'chacham, the Anav. Maseches Nedarim states that Hashem's spirit cannot rest on a person unless they are a gibor, some type of hero or some type of brave person, and an ashir, someone who's wealthy, someone who's a chacham, someone who's wise, and someone who's an anav, who's humble. Now, this Gemara reinforces the question that Rosh Schwab already asked. Wealth is not seen as a positive thing necessarily, certainly not in Koheles and Mishlei. So how could the Gemara in Shabbos interpret our pasuk Asher Aser Kedei Shetit Asher, where Osher is seen in a positive way? Furthermore, how could this Gemara in Nedarim say that God only will rest His presence upon a person who's an Ashir, Why do you need to be an usher to be able to gain God's presence? It seems like from this Gemara Nedarim that in order to gain the presence of God, in order to be a Navi, the Gemara is saying you have to be an usher. What exactly is the benefit of being an usher? The Rambam states in the 7th parak of Shmona Prakim, we know that a Navi never doesn't become a Navi until he gains all these intellectual levels. Not only must he gain intellectual levels, milos hasichlios, but also in midos, in terms of his own traits, he has to grow as well. V'hu amram sham. The Rambam says the source for understanding that a person has to gain both intellectual levels and midos levels is derived from this Gemara Nedarim, which Rav Schwab just asked about. The word chacham, right? The Gemara says that the Navi has to be a chacham to gain hashras hashchina. That obviously refers to all the malos hasichlios, the intellectual levels that a Navi has to gain as a prerequisite for nevuah. The ashir hu mimalos hamidos, but the word ashir in that list of traits that a Navi must have in the Gemara, the Rambam says refers to milos hamidos. That's to the traits that a person has to gain. Rotzelom. What are the traits signified by being quote unquote an ashir, a wealthy person? Hahistapkus mipnei shehem korim hamistapek ashir. It means being satisfied with what you have. Because we see, says the Rambam, that ashir refers to not someone who's just wealthy, but someone who is satisfied with their own wealth. Vehu amram, as the Rambam quotes famously, beautifully, as we all know, from Pirkei Avos, begeder ha'ashir, defining the category of an ashir, ezehu ashir hasameach b'chalko. Who's defined as an ashir hasameach b'chalko? So if that's Chazal's definition of ashir, now you have to read that back into the Gemara Nedarim. A person can only become a Navi, can only gain the hashras hashchina when they are a chacham. They've gained all the milos hasichlios, all the intellectual capacities, and when they become an ashir. Ashir is code word sameach bechelko, satisfied with their lot. Satisfied with their lot is code word, according to the Rambam, for milos hamidos, for a person who's really conquered themselves and their own traits and their own morality to the level where they could be satisfied with what they have. That they're happy with whatever they have at that particular time, and they're not dissatisfied with anything that God didn't provide for them in that moment. That's the quote from the Rambam. Now, Rav Schwab says, coming back to our question on our pasuk, Asher kedei shetis aser kedei shetis asher. You should take off meiser in order to become an usher. We asked, how could that be? Ashir is normally frowned upon. Why would we want to take off meiser in order to gain wealth? So the Rambam reads, the Rav Schwab reads the Rambam and the Gemara Nedarim and the Masa and the Pirkei Avos all back into our pasuk, into our Mamar Chazal in Masach Shabbos, and says, "V'chein nir lefarish b'mashu amru aser b'shvil shetis asher." We can read that back into our statement in Masach Shabbos that you should take off meiser in order to become an usher. The idea is you should continue to tithe in order for you to become an usher. Usher not in the sense of wealthy, but in the sense of a person who is sameach bechalko. But somehow being able to take off meiser properly and diligently and wholeheartedly is something that will lead you to become a sameach bechalko. Sharei ze atzmo inyan ha-meiser. Lahasim gavul, lechem daso, lechalik mitov aso, leacherim, ubishvil ze zoch leashirus ha'amitis. Why does one lead to the other? Because the whole act of taking off meiser is saying, I can do with less. I can be happy with less. I can say that my wealth only reaches X, and beyond that, it's not mine anymore. And if I'm able to do that and say, beyond this, I don't need any more. Beyond this, I'm giving to meiser and to truma and to meiser sheni, and whatever I have left is going to be enough, then you have already gained the trait of being a sameach chalka, of recognizing that whatever God gave you is a gift and that you can be happy with that, and that you have enough to be able to live on. And with that, zochel ashirus ha'amitis. And by doing that, you gain the true wealth. The true wealth, not in terms of amassing dollars and cents, but true wealth in terms of leading a life of midos, leading a life of positive traits, where you can be satisfied with what you have, not just in the financial department, but in every department of life. Ubazeh yesh levar mam ramzal. And if we understand our pasuk in this way, asher, aser to aser, and we understand the Gemara in Shabbos, aser kedei shetis asher, that you should tithe to become an asher. And we understand the Gemara in the Dharma, we understand the Rambam, all the sources he brought so far. We understand this concept, that taking off Meiser and saying ad kan, that this is enough for me and whatever else I'm giving away, leads a person to become a Baal Midos, a person with incredible traits, a person who's able to say, I'm satisfied with what I have. Then we can now read another Gemara in Tainus very interestingly as well. The Gemara in Tainus quotes the Pasuk in Malachi, Heviu es kol ha-meiser al beis ha-otzer v'harikosi lachem bracha ad bli dai. A beautiful Pasuk, which says, if you bring all the maestros in to the Beis HaOtzar to collect it, then harikosi lachem bracha ad bli dai. Malachi says in the name of Hashem that if you take off the right maestros and if you bring all the maestros to the Beis HaOtzar, to the treasuries of the Mikdash, of the Levim, the Kohanim, of the Aniyim, then what will happen is harikosi lachem bracha ad bli dai. God will pour over all of the bracha onto you, His people, ad bli dai, with no end. My ad bli dai. What does the Gemara mean? Or what does the Pasuk, the Gemara says, what does the Pasuk in Malachi mean, ad bli dai, until no end? Ad sheyivlu sifsochseichem milomar dai. Until your lips can have ceased to say, dai, enough, enough. Until your lips can express that word dai. Meaning God will give you so much bracha until you be able to express with your lips, dai, enough. Klomar, ha'ashirus haba al yadei nesinas ha'maiser, hi ha'koach lomar dai. Reading this Gemara's words back into the Pasuk, according to now our new lens, what the Gemara is really saying is that according to the Pasuk in Malachi, once you bring all the maiser, God will be able to give you so much bracha that your lips will be able to say dai, that you as a person will be able to recognize, I have enough. Again, reinforcing the same concept. By bringing meiser, you're able to gain that midah of hasameach bechalko, shemaspik lo b'mashehimti lo zamanu, that you were satisfied with what you have in that moment. He goes further into this interpretation of the Gemara, ad sheyivlu sifsochseichem milomar dai, until your lips will be able to utter the words dai. Agav urchin nevar lashon ad sheyivlu sifsochseichem milomar dai. I'm going to interpret that line from the Gemara for you even further now, according to our concept. Asher kvar he'ir ha'mefarshim she'im mishamshim ba'asavasayim bechituch milas dai. The mefarshim already know. This is a strange Gemara. Until your lips can say the words dai. Well, what's interesting is our lips don't utter the words dai. Our lips are not used to say the word dai, dai. Your lips never touch each other when you say dai. Your tongue is used, but not your lips. V'yitachan she'akavana shebeis tzara tzoakim vai asher hi mimotza asvasayim. Maybe the intent of the Gemara is saying, in an eis tzara, in time of distress, when you feel needy, when you feel lacking, you cry out vai, like oi vei, vai. Vai, vai is something you use your lips to express. Umirov hatlaos alul sheyivlus hasvasayim elomar vai. That because of all the distress, your lips might continue to say and to utter these words, vai. Va'amar hanavi she'iyu yamim sheyasir HaKadosh Baruch Hu mimenu yagon v'anacha ve'od lo yishama shod v'shever ve'lo yivlu hasvasayim elomar vai el shebemakomam yomru dai mirov habracha shiblu nikil HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There may be one day, maybe the bracha of the Navi the harikosi lachem bracha ad bli dai, according to the Gemara, which means ad sheyivlu sisseichem milomar dai, means that instead of the word vai being uttered so much in days of distress, that you will reach that level where God pours all His bracha upon you, where your lips will no longer say vai, but actually be able to say dai, no longer using the lips to utter those words at all. Beautiful ending to this drasha, that of course that all of our days of distress should hopefully be turned into days of bracha in general, and even further than that, not only should God allow us to exit the days of distress and enter the days of bracha, but that in our own psyche and our own perspective, we should also emerge by giving meiser, by saying, Kan velo yoser. I have enough with what I have, and the rest is not mine. The rest I can give away. The rest I can use to help others. The rest I can use for mitzvah purposes. By doing that, we will also be able to transform the way we look at times of distress, and no longer cry out "Vai," bemoaning our situation, but being able to transform ourselves to the milos hamidos that the Rambam refers to, and being able to say "Die," not "Vai," but "Die," until our lips can utter the words "Die." That's the mila that we're able to reach through the giving of Meiser. The giving of Meiser Sheni, as referred to in our Parsha. We don't bring Meiser Sheni anymore to Yerushalayim, but the concept of Maestros still exists today. The concept of Tzedakah certainly still exists today, and all of that can help us to gain the level of understanding of our own existence and of our own being and of our own place in the universe. So being able to understand that whatever we have is a bracha from Hashem, that we can work to feel satisfied with. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's something you do have to work on, something that we never fully reach, but that we can strive to reach day in and day out. Shabbat Shalom.